morning and welcome to First Financial Biz Beat, presented by the Business Courier. I'm Kyla Woods. It's been half a year since working from home became more of a way of life instead of a luxury. And that's been bad news for downtown businesses. Now the clock is ticking. On the front page centerpiece this week, time is running out to avoid permanent damage. Offices are virtually empty and walking downtown feels like it did in the 90s, eerily quiet. And places that bank on that foot traffic can't hold on for much longer. Courier reporter Tom Demaropoulos asked the largest employers in the Central Business District when workers may return. He shares those answers with editor Rob Dahlmeyer.
Thank you very much. Tom, thanks so much for being here.
Happy to be here, Rob.
So great cover story this week. I really recommend it to everybody out there. But let's start at the beginning. What is the reality right now downtown?
The reality right now, Rob, in downtown is that it's just a fraction of the people who are typically there every day. Normally, downtown has about 70,000 employees, coming down there, parking, getting coffee, picking up lunch. And right now, our best information is overall about 15% occupancy in buildings downtown. So you've got about 60,000 people that are not coming downtown every day to go to work. And that's a real hurt on the downtown economy. And talking with some of our large employers, it's even fewer. You look at Courier, which normally has about 4,000 people downtown. They've got about 150 coming to the office every day. Great American, which normally has about 3,000 employees, they've only got about 150. So it's really, there are far fewer people down there than is normal.
So who's being impacted the most with this? It's not, Procter & Gamble's got its own business to run. Kroger's got its own business to run. They're keeping people home in such a way where, they're trying to make it work for their bottom line. But so they're really not the ones being most impacted when we talk about downtown. Who is being impacted the most?
Yeah, it's all the businesses that really make our downtown really fun and vibrant and a thriving place to be. It's the restaurants, it's the bars, it's the service retailers, it's the clothing shops, it's the hair salons and the barber shops. All those different things that you come to think about in a downtown, they're all struggling. It's a lot of pain. And even the hotels are really hurting because, downtown hotels have a lot of business travelers. There's no business people to go meet with at their office, so there's no reason to travel. Even if people were traveling, they wouldn't be going to stay at a downtown hotel because there's no one to go meet at that office.
So it's one thing to talk about this as a temporary thing. And obviously in the story, you've got Steve Leeper from 3CDC basically saying, downtown is on the clock, and everything you just said, the clock is ticking. And the situation of 15% of workers coming downtown right now is not sustainable. So let me ask you this. Do you think that from everybody you've talked to, do you get a feeling that this is a permanent shift? Working from home, is that going to be just the new reality, or do you believe that this is, from the people you've talked to, that this is a temporary thing?
From everyone I've talked to, I think initially the reaction was, how are we going to figure out how to work from home? And then it became, okay, we've figured out how to work from home. This works. Now we're at the point where a lot of companies are saying, okay, we need to get back to the office. Our productivity is down. The level of engagement is down. The ability to create and foster a company culture, to mentor people, all those things that need to happen in face-to-face collaboration are just not happening, and there hasn't been something that replaces that type of interaction. So I do see that when it's safe to return, and when companies determine what's safe for them to return, you'll start to see more people coming back to the office because people work better when they work together.
So let's finish on my last question here then. The 800-pound gorilla here is the question is, this story is going to be controversial in some ways, and that there are certain people who, health is everything, and the economy is just going to have to deal with it, versus people who are looking at this in maybe a more pragmatic way, or a realistic. I hate to use the word realistic, but in a way that admits that there's an economy that can be wrecked. How controversial do you think it is, or from what you've heard? The idea of health versus the economy. Where are we supposed to come down on that?
Yeah, it's really tough, and I think every company has to figure out what their level of risk is. Where do they want to rank in terms of how much value do they place on having their employees work together,
Right.
Versus the risk of people getting sick, because you're not going to stop illness 100%. It's just, even with a vaccine, we wouldn't have 100%. No one would ever get sick. That's not reality. But companies need to figure out, what can we do to make this workspace as safe as possible, and then start the process of bringing people in, and just, do it gradually. Start with a few people, start with 10%, and then gradually build up as you're able to keep the space safe, keep the employees safe. That's what's important as they start this process. But I think it is important to start the process.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, thank you very much, Tom. This is a great story. It's the big issue that we're facing right now, and downtown is feeling it, frankly, more than any other part of Cincinnati. And downtown is the hub of our economy. So this is a huge question, and it's a huge issue. I don't think it's anything anybody thought we'd ever face, and hopefully we'll never see it again. But it's the reality, and I highly recommend the read. And again, thanks for being here, Tom.
Thanks, Rob.
And back to you.
Thank you, Rob and Tom, for that interview. One thing people are doing, and doing a lot of, is online shopping. The pandemic boosted sales big time, and now new data shows that's not changing, even with retail stores reopening. A report from Adobe Analytics shows online sales up 42% in August, reaching $63 billion.
Things like grocery and the electronics category as a whole, those types of categories have settled into what we'd assume is being a new normal for online commerce, where people have started just naturally buying some of these products online.
The surge in orders is creating shipping delays, leading shoppers to buy online and pick up in store. Those sales are up a whopping 259% compared to last year. You'll be able to eat outside through the end of the year in Covington. Mayor Joe Meyer signed an executive order keeping those outdoor dining spots open through January 2nd. The program has been an immense help to restaurants during the pandemic. An artisan market is coming to Newport on the Levee. These are pictures of the Exchange, which is going in at the old Barnes & Noble space next to Bridgeview Box Park. It will include space for local artisans to work, and the top floor will be an office space. The Ripple Wine Bar will operate there during the holidays. The Cincinnati Ballet is back. The socially distanced outdoor productions at Sawyer Point Pavilion run all weekend. It's one of the first companies in the nation to return to the stage for a reimagined season thanks to COVID. There are a lot of solo performances, and all dancers are wearing masks. But they're back on stage, and they're really pumped about it.
We came up with a repertoire that was quite ambitious, really technically difficult. And our dancers came to us and said, wait a minute, we've been off for 6 months. Let's think about this. And so we got their feedback. In some ways, the dancers helped to curate this. Like, what do you really love? What did you want to do that you've never been able to do? Or what did you do before that you loved and you want to do again?
Construction on the ballet's new home in Walnut Hills is moving right along, and they plan to move in June. A restaurant that's been at Lunken Airport since World War II is now closed. The Sky Galley said goodbye last weekend, and it went with lunch with a view of planes landing and taking off. There are fewer planes to see at Lunken, too. As we reported just last week, Ultimate Air grounded flights through the end of the year. Coming up next on First Financial Biz Beat, what's old is new again. Greater Cincinnati's newest pinball arcade and the grand plans for it. Some relatives of those who died in the Beverly Hills Supper Club fire are suing over redevelopment plans. Homes and apartments are being built on the site, along with a memorial to the 165 people killed. Southgate city leaders say they were blindsided by the lawsuit. The developer, Ashley Builders Group, says this will delay its work with survivors on placement of the memorial. A Greater Cincinnati candy maker is working to shrink the digital divide. Erlanger's Perfetti Van Mel creates Mentos and Airheads. It's teaming up with United Way and Cincinnati Bell to provide internet access to students in the Erlanger-Ellesmere district. It's also making funds available for students in 5 northern Kentucky counties to access Wi-Fi for remote learning. And it's one of the prettiest sights every year with a poignant message, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's annual Light the Night Walk. The pandemic might be throwing a wrench into the usual way things are done, but cancer doesn't stop during a global health crisis, and neither will this event. Dawn Berryman from the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society talked about how they'll be lighting the night virtually with Courier Market Engagement Director Kelly Snyder.
Thanks, Kyla. Dawn, thanks for being here. So tell us, what is the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and what do they do?
Well, Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, we're the largest health organization in the world dedicated to finding cures for blood cancers. Specifically, our mission is to cure leukemia, lymphoma, Hodgkin's disease, and multiple myeloma, and improve the quality of life of patients and their families. LLS has been around since 1949, and in that time, we have invested over $1.3 billion in research towards finding cures. And beyond just finding cures, we are the largest provider of free educational support resources for patients, caregivers, and healthcare. And we have a robust advocacy network across the country who really fights to make sure that patients have access to treatment and can afford it. It doesn't do us any good to find cures and treatments that work if patients can't actually access it. And beyond that, we push clinical trials, making sure patients have access to those. And moving forward, we have a program starting next year. We're focusing on a bigger push on children's cancer research and through our children's initiative, and really putting a big push on that in the upcoming year.
So I know Light the Night is one of the largest fundraising campaigns that supports that mission. And normally it takes place down at Yateman's Cove. Can you tell us a little bit about Light the Night and how it will be different this year?
Yes, so we would love to be obviously live down at Yateman's Cove again this year, but the pandemic dictates that we need to be virtual this year. But we think it's still going to be an amazing, inspiring event for our participants and our patients. And we're really excited to put this on. While we can't be together physically, it's really a super important time that we're together virtually and that we engage together and that we still celebrate together. Light the Night is all about celebrating, honoring, and remembering those who are currently going through a cancer treatment or who have gone through a treatment in the past. As you can see behind me, Light the Night is all about light. It's all about bringing light to the darkness of cancer. Our supporters carry a different lantern based on their reason for participating. Red for supporters, white for survivors, and those walking in memory of someone will carry a gold lantern. And this year they have that opportunity to still carry their lantern physically or virtually. The concept of this virtual event is really to try to mimic what it would be a live event. We will have, it'll be from 7 to 8 on October 8th, and participants can come in and they can check out the site. There will be virtual lantern experiences, just like they would have at the walk for our Circle of Survivors, our Remembrance Pavilion, different places they can go, take time to reflect on their treatment, or a loved one maybe who's lost their battle. There'll be different areas where they can kind of entertain themselves until our ceremony starts. There'll be a kids zone, there'll be selfie stations, all kind of things they can do, just like they would be able to do at a live walk. And then at 7:15, we'll bring everyone together for our ceremony, and it'll be just as moving and inspirational as it always is. And then after that, we'll encourage people to go out and take a walk around their neighborhood with their friends, their family, their neighbors. There's even a music they can download that'll be filled with inspiration and, just happy music to make them feel like they were together just down at Yateman's Cove. And then they can all come back and we'll do a social celebration. We'll have a fireworks app that they can download and opportunities to post things to social media and just really flood everybody's social media that night and remind them that why we're there, bringing light to the darkness of cancer.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. So if people want to get involved, they just go to lightthenight.org and register, right?
Absolutely. As simple as that. They can create a team, they can register as an individual, or they can simply make a donation to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society at that site as well.
Great. Dawn, thanks so much for being here.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Back to you, Kyla.
Kelly. Well, still to come on First Financial Biz Beat, cast in bronze, a progress report on the life-size statue of a larger-than-life icon. A statue to honor a local civil rights icon is coming together. This past week, a foundry cast the head of Marion Spencer in bronze. Spencer's love of children and community will live on in the statue, which will eventually be installed at Smale Park.
It's nice to contribute something to not only the city, but obviously the development of the riverfront.
So the whole theme of the sculpture is really about unity. And yeah, so right now it's really symbolic right now to see the pieces all coming together.
The statue was scheduled to be unveiled in June in honor of Spencer's 100th birthday. Of course, COVID slowed down the progress. A new unveiling date has not been set. A Shark Tank winner is behind a new old-school pinball arcade in Hamilton. A virtual pinball idea is what won Brad Baker a $200,000 investment on the hit show. All 30 machines in the garage are among the top 50 in the world among pinball enthusiasts. Baker already has plans to build Pinball Garage into the largest collection in the U.S. A Shark Tank-esque competition is taking place right here in Cincinnati, and there's $60,000 up for grabs. Centrifuge CEO Pete Blackshaw talked about the pitch competition with Courier publisher Jamie Smith.
Thank you, Kyla. And Pete, welcome to the show today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. You know, the first question is, and it probably sounds like an easy one, but what exactly is fintech?
Well, it is an emerging sector that uses technology to improve, financial activities. And it's a pretty big tent, includes the insurance sector. It intersects with healthcare. It has a lot to do with supply chains or how supply chains get upgraded. But it is one of the most exciting sectors, and it is bringing in billions and billions of dollars in both risk capital and private equity. And we want a piece of that.
Okay. So then go a little further. What's the FinTech Frontier?
Yeah, the FinTech Frontier is a kind of an initiative that Centrifuge in partnership with Western and Southern and Fifth Third have initiated with an ambition of really making Greater Cincinnati a hub for FinTech startups and FinTech growth. And we want a big piece of that pie. It's growing like crazy. And importantly, we believe it can actually continue the strength of our financial and insurance sectors. I mean, everybody needs to modernize. Everyone needs a step change innovation. But we know that cultivating a startup economy around us is going to make a huge difference. And I am particularly bullish about the wealth of resources and the talent that we have that can really get that going, but we need to catalyze it. And so we're doing, it's a program with a series of events, but the most important one is a pitch competition that we are having at the end of October 29th, which is actually going to have up to $60,000 in prizes. So that's a big deal. They're putting their money where their mouth is.
So tell me again, let's go back just one step. Why do you think Cincinnati is prime for the epicenter? I mean, I know you mentioned the resources and just organizations. What else do you see so strong here?
Well, there's a ton of advantages if you look at scorecards that have been put out ranking Midwest and cities across the U.S. Cost of living, I know from having launched my own startup here and sold it to Nielsen that you can really extend burn rate. You can definitely find talent. There's a supportive ecosystem, fantastic publications like the Biz Courier that provide a lot of critical support. I mean, but I really mean that. There's a really, I think this is, undiscovered treasure for an entrepreneur that's really looking to carve out a big niche. And importantly, the big cos are really hungry for innovation. It's very easy to stereotype big companies as slow and sluggish, but mark my word, they are eager to figure this out. And we need to make that connection. Okay. And, and we've seen success in markets like Columbus that have really kind of broke out in this area just in recent years. So I'm very bullish.
Okay, great. Well, let's go back to the competition a little bit. What do companies need to know or individuals need to know to get involved in this? I know we're going to put your website on the screen.
Yeah.
About what they need to do.
Yeah, well, there's two fundamental categories that we're tackling through the pitch competition. Number one, closing the gap, enabling financial security for consumers at every stage and from every walk of life by expanding access to or affordability of financial tools. And then the second bucket is around powering business. And that's from the back office to the front door. We think fintech services that empower, businesses and consumer experiences. So a lot of territory to work with, and you can go to the site and fill out the form. And we really are super optimistic at the quality of content that we're going to get. There's no question that the sponsors, but also potentially the other banks, because we're hoping to use this to inspire them to kind of come to the table for something even bigger down the line. I think they're going to be paying a lot of attention to what these, startups bring to the table. The other thing I wanted to underscore is that you don't have to be a fully fledged startup to participate. You could be moonlighting in a job with a great idea that you want to kind of put out there. So we want to really broaden the tent. And we know that some of the best ideas probably are percolating with folks that are kind of thinking about trans. And in some cases, those sponsor those ideas, but in a different work context.
Excellent. All right. Well, I know we're almost out of time, but are there any other virtual events that you guys have going on this fall?
Oh, thanks for asking. Startup Cincy Week is coming up. We hope it's going to be bigger, better. It's all going to be virtual, which, as you know, is going to allow us to really plant our flag across the globe. So I'm actually hoping we get a lot more eyeballs from the outside looking in, thinking, what are they doing in Cincinnati? Maybe I need to move out there. But we'll probably have about 100 programming tracks. Centrifuge is having its AGM on the first day. And then, of course, the pitch competition is layered onto Startup Cincy Week, because we obviously want to ride that momentum. So some fantastic things happening, and I'm really, really bullish. And, with your help, I think we can really move the needle.
All right. Pete, thank you so much for being on today, but also thank you for everything you guys are doing to help Cincinnati keep moving. Have a great
Thank you very much. Take care.
All right. Back to you, Kyla.
All right, thank you, Jamie. And thanks to you for joining us for First Financial Biz Beat. We're back at our regular home next week on Local 12 at noon. I'm Kyla Woods. Have a great weekend.